Welcome to the Flora and Order Time Chat. I've got with me here Dean Daskalou, and he is a Melbourne-based buyer's advocate. Dean and I actually go back a while, and he was a client of mine back in November 2020 for just shy of a year. We did many half-hour sessions because they suited you best. And we worked on organizing your workflow, your schedule, the whole kit and caboodle, really. And what I found interesting about having supported you through that was how, at the time, you were working full-time as an osteo, and then you changed into buyer's advocacy. So to kick us off, what's kind of your reflections? What do you remember back from working with me back in November 2020? What do you remember about the coaching?
Look, the first thing welcome now, and thanks for having me on this awesome little YouTube channel clip, whatever we want to call it. But no, look, it's good to talk about a lot of the learnings and things that I've done in the past, because I think the main thing I remember is at the time, we all talk about being busy, and we all talk about, having a lot on our plate, and sometimes we wear it as a bit of a badge of honor. But I think at the time, I wasn't really worried about having a badge of honor. I wasn't really worried about, being busy, because I was doing the juggling from one business to another, and an osteopath and a buyer's agent. I mean, I don't think you could get any more different from one to the other. But I do remember talking to you and thinking, look, not only did we get along part of our conversation, but I felt that just your approach and your ability to listen, I thought that it was really important for me to use someone like that, because there's so much noise. I think what I'm getting at is there was so much noise around me that I think I needed to try and filter it, and the only way I could filter some of that noise was to talk to you, and then the next step was to use your services, which was really important, because we all, again, as I said to you before, I introduced myself as being busy, and everyone talks about being busy, but I think it's having you on board was a really good initial filtering system.
Yes. Busy as a badge of honor. It's very popular right now, isn't it? I think it's bringing awareness to that. It's so important for us to be able to slow down and actually think about, well, what do we actually want to achieve, and what do we want to be busy on?
Yeah.
How did you find that the cutting through the noise, how did that help you with your transition to the new career?
Well, look, I'll answer the question in the sense that when I cut through the noise, I think it was more the inception period. So there was a time, obviously, before I became a buyer's agent, I had to think about what I wanted to do and how I wanted to go through it. So I was obviously had to do a lot of upskilling. I had to do my real estate license as well, my certificate 4, and all the while I had a business in the background, and I was running a business at the time. And I think for me, it was really important. And when I didn't use your services, I suppose, I'd like to talk about your services and how they intertwine, is because when I didn't use your services, I felt a little bit manic. But when you have that goal of wanting to transition, you tend not to mind that manic approach, because you know that there's an end goal. But one thing I realized is that, look, it was really interesting. I thought it was just going to happen so quickly, and I thought I was going to just transfer from one, do a 180 straight to the other without a lot of the planning in between. And I think prior to using your services, I even thought, well, maybe it'll be a 3-month period or 6-week period. I did keep it open-ended. I said, if we need to keep going, let's just keep going. But I sort of thought in my head it may have been a little bit quicker from a transition. Not your services. I thought in my head that the transition was going to be a lot quicker, and yeah, it wasn't. It really wasn't. I think you need to make sure that you're organised beforehand. But even so, I still think it would have taken the same amount of time. I think I would probably call myself not naive, but business naive, just thinking the naivety there that I've already done a business before, I should transition to another one really quickly. And yeah, it wasn't to be. It wasn't as quick as I thought. So if someone, oh, look, I'll only need your services, or I'll only need to make the transition over a short period of time, I think you have to give yourself a little bit of leeway, because if you put yourself under more pressure, it just feeds into that whole being busy notion again. And I don't think it really helps, because then you tend to fast track and bypass a lot of the services that are required to do the transition, or, you know, to organize your business.
Yeah. And it's also because we were kind of unpacking a lot of habits or routines that had worked in your last role, and in that business, and then unpacking that to see, like, well, what actually was working and what wasn't working, and what would you have liked it to be different going forward. So you're not alone in that. And that a lot of people come and they're like, oh, well, you know, I'm 30 years old, I'm 35, I'm 40, I'm 45 years old, and yeah, wanting it quickly, but realizing we've got those number of years behind us, having to look at those different habits and reconstruct them. So it does take time. Yeah, and I always thought that was quite interesting what you said, because checking in with you later after having finished up coaching with you, do you remember showing me your calendar and going, I'm so proud, look at this, and then going, it's clicked, it's finally clicked, like this is working now, and coming to that realization of, oh, it did actually take a lot of time.
Yeah, look, going back to that whole transition, being an osteopath, you can only be an osteopath for the time that you're with your clients. So, you know, you're booked in for your hours, you know where you are. So you do have obviously some organization around what you do. But I remember thinking, oh, look, the transition will be relatively quickly, because I'll just put a block for buyer's advocacy. But then you don't realize, well, there's more than just being a buyer's advocate. You've got to include your personal life in there as well. And look, like I said, even to, you know, like I said, I'm still using it to this day, and I'm better at it. But I've got different colors. I've got different, you know, I know purple's my personal exercise. I know, you know, blue is something that I need to be involved. I'm talking about my diary here, and different things are color coded so I can, you know, execute during those times. But also, it's not just about, you know, knowing what a color is, it's actually implementing it, which was really the harder part, which took a little longer. I think initially, I'm not sure how long that period was, but I felt that I spaced it over a longer period of time, because I was a little more truer to myself at the time, Christy. To be honest, I thought, I know the idea in my head that I'd like to get it done in 6 weeks, but I just thought, no, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to have to give it 12 weeks. I think we were together for over 6 months at the end of the day, or closer to a year. But it was, you know, that check-in process as well. But, you know, it's like you do something at the start and you don't want it to wane off. And that was one thing that I didn't want to do, because I couldn't afford for it to fail in a way, because from one business to another, if I fail in being able to organize myself, then I'm not putting time for the new business. I'm not putting time, then it's not gonna do well. It's not gonna work the way I want it to work for my transition, which means I'll be still working as an osteopath longer than what I want to be. So yeah, look, it's actually, I know I'm sort of playing it like of huge importance, but for me it really was. I think for me it was the ultimate importance to actually have that organization there and make sure that I've got everything accounted for, and to follow it as best I can. No one's ever 100% going to follow everything to a T, and sometimes, you know, even doing this meeting today, you know, things are thrown into it, and I was doing a bit of a deal beforehand as a buyer's agent, and but again, it's booked in. So if you're 5 minutes late, okay, that's all right. But you move forward, and you're still accountable for the time that you've written in your diary, and the way you've organised your life moving forward, and the way you've organised the business moving forward.
Definitely. Yeah. So the calendar, and what other strategies or tools would you say are essential in your day-to-day life now?
Well, look, you tend to keep working on it. So I think it's a very fluid thing. So not that we haven't worked for a little while, but it's more about the way we approach the organising is not just about what you've got written down, because you still need to implement it. And I've had a few issues in the, yes, I would put notes to put in to do notes, and then I wouldn't do them because the diary, I thought the diary could be everything for me, but you've still got to work out what works best for you. Now, for example, I've got a little tablet here, which it's an electronic tablet, and I used to have 15 notebooks lying around, and I thought to myself, wow, I'm doing really well. I'm writing everything down what I need to do, but then I'd be jumping from one thing to the other and I wouldn't know where it is. So that's where that whole goal and that whole purpose of trying to still improve and tweak it as you go along is really important. Now I've got all my notes, and all my files are down, and I can show people that I've got little areas for my properties, my investments, my to-do notes, and something that I can follow on a daily basis, and then I can still refer back to what my ultimate calendar is, like what I need to do, and it's personal as well, whether it's doing, as I said to you before, picking up the kids, doing the washing, doing my shopping, having exercise put in there as well. And it's just, again, it's not just about juggling. It's you're juggling your life, but there's allocated times. And to be honest, you don't feel, once you've done it, I feel really good, because I'm like, okay, well, I've ticked my swim off, and I've got my weekly shop done, and I've got my, my Zoom meeting with a client, and then I've got some, other work that I need to do. So after that, things come up, but you've got the bare bones in there, and that's the real important thing, because if you have a crazy day, which we all do, you always can refer back to it and say, oh, okay, well, what does my to-do list say? What does my diary say? So I can always, don't have to think and hold it on. I don't need to hold everything in my head, because I can't. That's actually impossible.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, it's a support. It's something for you to look at and go, okay, where are we going now?
Yeah.
What do we need to do? Yeah. And so how has your perspective on time shifted since changing careers? Like, do you think, you mentioned it was like, as an osteo, the time box is quite set, and you're in that clinic, and now you're a bit more free range out and about.
Yeah.
So what's your perspective been?
I think from a structure perspective, I feel that it's less regimented, as you said before, and even I was running a clinic with 6-7 other different staff, and 8 included myself. I think there was a peak, and I was there a lot, but again, when I was there, I did my work, and I took a little bit home, but not a lot. Whereas now I'm working from home, I'm working at clients. We do meetings, we see face-to-face, I go out on the road. So I think for me, it is actually equally as important now, if not more, because I can't just have a base as my home. I'm seeing other properties, so I make sure on Saturday, and I've got all my open for inspections in there as well, and I know when they are on. They're not just written down. You can't write them on your to-do list, because I'll be driving in the car, and I add little notes to them as well. Like, I make sure that I've got the addresses all in there as well, so I can drive and make sure that I've got everything available to me, because that's what you need to do. And if someone's using your service, if someone is signing you up to make their life easier, and I do talk about saving my clients time, saving money, but if I can't organize my time, how am I going to save them their time? Do you know what I mean? If I'm not doing the right thing by them at the end of the day.
Yeah, definitely. And why was it important for you to change careers? Like, in the thinking about, like, time, like living your life and living what's true to you, why was it important for you to change careers?
Look, it does. There is that interplay with time as well, because every time you reapply for your insurance every year, they ask you, how long do you think you'll be an osteopath for? It's like a bit of a survey. It said, how long have you been in the industry? How long do you plan to be in the industry? And I always thought, oh, well, I'll keep going till 65. And then every year for the last 5 years or prior to, I'd always be asking myself, well, they're asking me these personal questions just from a survey, but I'm not really. The first couple of times I just answered it to get out of the way, but I also thought, well, what do I really want to do, and how do I want to spend the rest of my working career? Do I want to keep doing that? And there was always that potential. I thought, if I don't do something soon, then I'm always going to be potentially thinking, well, what else could I have done? It's not that I had it in my head what I wanted to do, but it gave me that space to think, well, okay, Dean, now you're, I think I started looking at, I'm 47 now, and I was 45, and I'm like 40 years old at the time when those questionnaires were coming through. I'm like, okay, well, now's the time to think, do you want to keep doing this for another 25 years? Because I've already done it for, 15 to 20. And I just got to that stage where I felt that I didn't feel that my profession was my life. And I don't, people talk, oh, what's your passion? I'm like, I've many passions. I don't have to just have one passion. And I use that rationale to move forward and say, okay, well, if I don't just have one passion, what are my other passions? And that's spurred on that. That was a bit of a catalyst to get the brain thinking and thinking in the direction that what was it that I wanted to do, not just because I'd done it for the last 15, 20 years, what's the next 15, 20 years? And I put myself in that position, and here I am now. So, it's a nice place to be
in. Yeah. And so being a buyer's advocate, how does that, how do you feel like you're supporting other people with using their time?
Look, we talk about my previous work where people were in pain and discomfort, and they'd have to take a lot of time out of their life to come and see you, and then I'd put a plan in place to make sure they follow through, whether it was exercises or just advice. But that's all sort of time that I'm imparting on them, and it's no real different now in the sense that I do save my clients time and money, and it's not just the money, it's the time. I think a lot of people don't realise, you could do a deal and save people money and say, okay, well, I saved you $50,000. Okay, well, what about the time? Because I talk to a lot of people and they've lost all their weekends. They work night shifts. They have to take time off work. They've been doing it for 6 to 12 months. And I'm just thinking of a recent client that I had that they were looking for 6 to 12 months, and they work night shift. They get 1 weekend off a month, I should say. And for them, it was so important to have someone do that job for them, not just to save them money. It was more to make sure that they got some of that time back, their life back. They could spend it with family, with their friends, with their children. And I think at the end of the day, that's one question I don't ask a lot of my clients is, well, what does it mean to you? Because when I'm paid for my fees, I've never had anyone question. They've always said, thank you for helping us along the way. We couldn't have done it without you. And that makes me feel obviously really good for me, because it's obviously the reason why I do it, but also it reinforces what our first meetings are, is I'm going to save you time. I'm going to save you a lot of running around and a lot of stress. And how much can you put on time? How much can you put on stress? Well, a lot of people are willing to pay a lot more than I charge them for that. I'll be honest, they would be, after they see what I can do for them at the end of the day. And I think I've got a better respect for that time now that I know that I've got a family and I juggle my time, and I've got business that I juggle my time with as well. And I make sure that I work with the right people, because I don't want to just work with people who don't appreciate that I can save them the time and the the stress of having to purchase a property, whether it's an investment property or whether it's an owner, their forever home, because people are at that stage where they're looking for their forever home, or some people are looking to build wealth with their investment properties. So yeah, I think it works in both areas that I'm specializing in at the moment.
Yeah. And it's so true that outsourcing to people who are good and enjoy the things that you don't enjoy doing. And I hear that a lot with people, that looking for your home, looking for something to buy is like a full-time job on top of your already busy lifestyle. So it makes sense to outsource to someone who actually enjoys all that and who that's your focus.
Christie, the question that I'm not sure if we've answered this, but a lot of people can organize their life. Yeah, that's fine. You can do it yourself. A lot of people can go and buy a house on their own. But again, we talked about it before, the time it takes someone to go from point A to point B is exponential if you don't have someone. If I didn't have your help, I would honestly feel that I'd be still stuck somewhere. I don't know where. I'd be stuck in between, I've got a bit of a plan, but it's working, but not great. And when it gets really stressful and busy, the plan falls apart. And I think having your guidance and reinforcing and having a look at what I was doing just reinforced exactly what the benefit of using you to help me with my time management was amazing. But again, I have passed that on to my clients, so I'm saving them time. So, using you has helped me across the board with my transition too. So, yeah, look, I know it goes a lot further than just using your services and checking in every week or every fortnight. It actually changes a lot of your approach to your life, and the changes there are really big if you want to take advantage of them. And your system worked for me, and I can't, thank you enough, really.
Oh, that's very nice to hear. Thank you, Dean. Yeah, and you're right. The ripple effects of, being organized, being on top of your time, using it the way that you want to. It is essentially, it's life management, and it's at the end of the day, like, it all comes back to time and how much time do we all have to do all the things that we want to do. And just even that your service as well links back to time, which I find is really interesting. And and so when you're working with people, do you find that they are thinking deeply about time, or is it I just need somewhere to live now, or what are those discussions like in the
look, the discussions on time are actually more prevalent than what you would think. A lot of times, as I said, we talk about saving people, money, the obvious thing that we'd like them to do, but and yes, I do help. I've got a huge network of people that are, whether they need a building invest, whether they need finance, whether they need a conveyancer lawyer to make sure that everything's in order before we move forward. But that's something that I work with people, and they're good people. But more importantly, people have tried to do it on their own, or they may have missed out, and they realize it's a lot harder than what they think to not just to purchase a property, but just to get the right advice. And they've realized that when they look back at that particular point, the amount of effort they've put into it, not just, and the effort's not just driving there, seeing a house, going to an auction, getting rejected. I mean, people have put in their effort. They've taken whole families out to see this particular property. They've gotten building and pest inspections. They've paid for lawyers to read the contract. And then at the end of the day, they find out, oh, we missed out because we didn't understand how much this property was worth. We got underquoted. And then that's unfortunate, because then, the whole industry gets tarnished with a brush of, oh, look, I can't trust anyone. And that's where it helps. Obviously, the trust comes into it. People can trust me because I'm working with them as a buyer's advocate or buyer's agent. But one of the first things that they say to me is, we've been looking for ages and we don't think we're going to buy something in the next 2 to 3 months. And I'm like, no, that usually is the normal time it takes me. Under 2 months is normal. And they look at me thinking, and you see that little glimmer in their eye thinking, I really wish he's not lying to me right now, because I want to get this done within that sort of time period, because they want to move on with their lives. And I think I mentioned it before, being in between. I think people being in between in their life, it's sort of like they want to make that next transition, and they want to buy their house, and they want to move on. It's moving on. It's not that they want to be stuck in that for another 6 months. And it's that time period of, okay, well, we need to go into that area. We've got kids that need to work, go to school in that area. So it's that, again, that ripple effect. But saving people time is probably the most important point that I get.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get people talking about money down the track, but it's the first thing that they talk about is saving time.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting what you were saying there about that they're expecting it to be faster as well, like that initial, like, oh, this is taking so long, which kind of relates back to what you were saying about habit change and even getting yourself organized. Like, would you say that you see that a lot in your work, that like even in the osteo experiences as well, that things are just great, and then like, things have sped up around us with technology and the like, but that doesn't mean that these sorts of processes or events of like buying a house or getting your health back on track, getting organized, these things still do take time. Do you have any reflections on that?
I think people, again, as you said before, you free up time from somewhere else, you'll fill it up with something else. And I was, again, it wasn't naive. I just didn't know exactly how long it takes to make these changes. And I think it was really important, because when I appreciated the time it took to get to where I was really comfortable and I was using our system, I mean, look, I could have done it, but I still needed I could have done it after that initial period that we were together, but I think I just needed that extra little bit of time, because I was true to myself. Because if you're true to yourself and say, okay, well, I'm a really quick learner, I can do this. Yes, you are, and we can do a lot of things, but that's if we're not interrupted with everyday life activities and someone getting ill, or a car breaking down, you're going to buy a new. What I'm saying is, there's all these curveballs thrown in life that we don't foresee. So yes, in a perfect world, using you for 3 months would have been perfect if I had nothing else. But I had 2 businesses, I had family, I've got 2 kids. There is no way I can change everything in that small period of time. And I know I say 3 months is a small period of time. It took me probably about 6 months where I felt really comfortable and able to really rely on the systems that we put into place. And I'm only speaking for myself. Other people may be quicker, but for me, it was about 6 months where I'm like, wow, this is really, really working. And this is really paying off. And I'm actually getting things done that I would normally kick the can down the road and do them later.
Mm.
But and what you said before with people in general was, my old work as an osteopath, yes, people wanted to be free of their discomfort and pain on the day that you saw them. And I'm like, no, there's a process that these things happen. You've got to wait for the, inflammation to reduce. You've got to wait for the pain to subside. You've got to do your exercises to help re-engage those muscles and decrease the pain. You don't do it just because your brain wants you. You have to follow your body. And same thing with your organizing process. Just because you've got it on paper, on your diary, or you've improved your note-taking systems, for example, you still have to implement and keep on top of it. You can't just set and forget. I've got to always keep fine-tuning and working what works for me.
Yes, love that. And so, as a parting statement, what advice would you give someone struggling to maintain new habits, based on your experience with working with me, with coaching with me?
I think what I would say to somebody who is struggling with their working habits is I'm talking to the person there. What are they waiting for to make that change? What are they are they waiting for things to completely fall apart or be rock bottom or completely unorganized to the point where everyone else is telling them, hey, you need to do something because things need to change? And this could happen in other ways, where it's your employer, or it could be a client of yours that you let down and you know that you could have done that a little bit better. I think that's my parting gift to these people, is don't wait for something like that to happen where in your mind you could have done it a little differently, that you could have been a little more well prepared for that person and you weren't. And not because of them, and we always love to blame somebody else, it's because of you. So don't wait to be blamed or blame yourself. Be proactive and make that change. I think that's the best thing that I can tell people.
Beautiful. Thank you, Dean. Thanks.
No
And
problem.
so, if someone is looking for a very heart-centered buyer's advocate, how can they reach you?
Well, they could call me directly on my mobile, which is 0412 232 772, because that's my phone. And if you want to see what I do and how I go about doing it, you can check my website at Succeed Property, all one word, succeedproperty.com.au.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Dean. Lots to think about and reflect on. So thank you.
You're welcome.